$4 billion, that's how much was stolen from crypto in 2025, up 37% from the year before. And here's the kicker, over half of it traced back to one country. Ben, when I saw these numbers, my first thought wasn't the code failed, it was the humans did.
You're absolutely right. And the ByBit hack proves it. $1.4 billion gone. Not because of some clever smart contract exploit, but because the developer's machine got compromised. The attackers disguised malicious transactions so well that the security team approved their own robbery.
So we're talking about social engineering on a massive scale.
Exactly. North Korea's Lazarus Group has industrialized this. They've moved from hitting bridges in 2021 to targeting centralized exchanges directly. ByBit, Swissborg for $41 million, Upbit for $30 million. These aren't opportunistic attacks. They're coordinated campaigns.
And if centralized exchanges are the Fort Knox of crypto, what does it say that they're being cracked open?
It says our threat model is outdated. We spent years hardening smart contracts, but we're still using multi-sig wallets where humans click approve on transactions they can't actually read.
Right, the blind signing problem. I saw Ledger announced a fix for this, clear signing, they called it. But didn't that turn into a PR disaster?
Total mess. They marketed it as a free security upgrade, then charged for it. But the bigger issue is that clear signing should have been the default from day one. The fact that we're celebrating it now shows how far behind we are on basic UX security.
So what's actually happening when someone blind signs?
Your hardware wallet shows you a transaction hash, basically a jumble of letters and numbers. You have no idea if you're approving a $5 payment or handing over control of a $1.4 billion wallet. The ByBit hackers exploited this perfectly. They compromised a safe wallet developer's machine and inserted malicious transactions that looked legitimate to the approval team.
That's genuinely terrifying, because you can have all the security protocols in the world, but if your interface lies to you,
you're done. And this isn't theoretical, it's the year's biggest hack. Meanwhile, we're still building systems that assume every human will be perfectly vigilant every single time.
Okay, so centralized exchanges got hammered. What about DeFi? Because I remember when the narrative was that decentralization would solve all these problems.
DeFi had a weird year. The losses were lower than previous years, but some of the hacks were almost nostalgic. Balancer lost $129 million in November from vulnerabilities in pools that launched 5 years ago. 5 years! How does that even happen? Legacy code. When you launch something in 2020 during DeFi summer, you're moving fast, iterating constantly. Fast forward to 2025, the protocol is still running. Maybe it's even considered battle-tested. But nobody's looking at the old code anymore. Hackers are.
We also saw Ribbon Finance, Rari Capital, and Yearn all hit in December. Some analysts thought it might be an AI-assisted hacking spree.
That's the speculation, that someone trained a model to identify patterns in older protocols. Whether it's true or not, it highlights something important. Your attack surface grows over time. More code, more integrations, more ways in. And if you're not actively maintaining every line, you're vulnerable.
But there's a silver lining here, right? Because newer protocols seem to fare better.
They did. The mature code bases that survived are probably the ones that'll stick around. The market's effectively stress testing everything constantly. If your protocol makes it a few years without catastrophic failure, that actually means something now.
Let's talk about phishing, because some of these stories are wild. A $27 million loss on Venus Protocol that everyone thought was a hack turned out to be one whale falling for a phishing scam.
And that whale presumably knew what they were doing, but phishing exploits the same vulnerability as the ByBit hack, the interface. You think you're interacting with Tornado Cash, but you're actually on a malicious clone. Your wallet asks you to approve a transaction, you see a reasonable-looking prompt and click yes. Gone.
Even the ZK Lend hacker lost $9.5 million this way. The hacker got hacked.
Poetic justice, but it proves the point. There's no skill level where you're immune. And these aren't even sophisticated attacks. They're fake websites and poisoned addresses. Someone lost $50 million to address poisoning right before Christmas.
For anyone who doesn't know, address poisoning is when attackers send you a tiny transaction from an address that looks almost identical to one you've used before. You copy the wrong address from your history, paste it into a transaction,
and send $50 million to North Korea. The scary part is how little technical knowledge the attacker needs. They're not exploiting code, they're exploiting copy and paste.
So after a year like this, what's the actual solution? Because be more careful isn't a security model.
No, it's not. Real security means you can't make catastrophic mistakes even if you try. This is where architectural choices matter. Take the blind signing problem. That exists because wallets are fundamentally disconnected from application state. The wallet doesn't know what transaction it's signing.
Versus a system where the wallet and the application are integrated.
Where they're part of the same security boundary. Some blockchain architectures handle this differently. On Internet Computer, for example, you're not signing opaque transaction hashes. The canister, which is the on-chain application, can present human-readable information directly to your wallet because it's all running on the same platform.
So you'd actually see a proof transfer of $1.4 billion to address XYZ instead of a hash.
Exactly. You'd see the dollar amount, the destination, what you're authorizing. It's not bulletproof. Phishing sites can still fake interfaces, but at least the legitimate infrastructure isn't actively hiding information from you.
What about this centralized point of failure issue? Because ByBit got hit through a single compromised developer machine.
That's about key management and how consensus works. Most multi-sigs gather signatures off-chain, which means the approval process happens on regular computers that can be compromised. You need systems where the signing happens inside the security perimeter, whether that's hardware modules or, in some architectures, threshold cryptography baked into the protocol itself.
Threshold crypto being where the key is split mathematically so no single entity has the full key?
Right. Chain key cryptography on ICP does this. The signature is generated by a network of nodes without any single node holding the full key. You'd need to compromise the majority of an entire subnet to forge a signature. That's a different threat model than compromise one developer's laptop.
But obviously, ICP had its own issues this year. I mean, no platform is immune.
Absolutely. And ICP's architecture doesn't help with phishing. You can still build a fake front end and trick users. The point isn't that any one system solves everything. It's that architectural choices determine what classes of attacks are even possible. If you're building on a platform where cold wallet management and blind signing are inherent to how the system works, you're accepting those vulnerabilities by default.
Let's come back to the geopolitics, because North Korea pulling off $2 billion in hacks isn't just a tech problem.
It's a nation-state adversary with infinite patience and a revenue motive. TRM Labs calls it industrialization of infrastructure attacks. They're not hitting random protocols. They're targeting exchanges where liquidity is concentrated and where one successful breach nets hundreds of millions.
And exchanges are centralized by design. They have to be. Someone has to custody the assets, run the matching engine, handle fiat on-ramps.
Which creates an existential tension in crypto. We want decentralization, but user behavior and regulatory reality push everything towards centralized services. Those services become targets. And when you're dealing with adversaries who have the resources and motivation of a nation-state, the security bar isn't good enough. It's perfect forever.
Which is impossible.
So maybe the real question is, do we need to accept that centralized custody will always be vulnerable and start pushing harder on architectures where custody isn't required?
Self-custody with better UX.
Self-custody where the UX doesn't make you choose between security and usability. That's the design challenge. Because right now, people use centralized exchanges specifically because the UX is better. Until we solve that, we're just waiting for the next ByBit.
All right, so looking forward, what should people actually be watching for?
First, whether exchanges adopt mandatory clear signing or better verification tools. If Ledger can do it, there's no excuse for exchanges not to require it. Second, watch how DeFi protocols handle legacy code. Are they sunsetting old versions, migrating users, or just hoping nobody finds the exploit?
And on the regulatory side?
The SEC softened in 2025, which brought DeFi projects out of the shadows. That's good for innovation, but it also means more mainstream users interacting with systems that aren't user-friendly yet. The next wave of growth will stress-test UX security in ways we haven't seen.
What about AI-assisted hacking? Because if that's actually happening,
then we need AI-assisted defense. Automated auditing, anomaly detection, pattern recognition at scale. The asymmetry is brutal. One hacker can probe thousands of protocols, but each protocol has to defend itself manually. If AI tips that balance further towards attackers, we're in trouble.
So not the most optimistic note to end on.
Well, here's the optimistic take. 4 billion sounds like a lot, but the total value locked in crypto is over $1 trillion. The fact that 99.6% of it wasn't stolen means something is working. The question is whether we learn fast enough to stay ahead.
I think the big takeaway for me is that this isn't a code problem anymore. It's a human systems problem. We've gotten pretty good at writing secure smart contracts, but we're still terrible at building interfaces that don't trick people into approving their own theft.
And we're still pretending that individual vigilance is a security model. It's not. Real security means the system catches your mistakes before they're catastrophic. We're not there yet, but at least now we know what we're building towards.
If you're holding crypto in 2026, do yourself a favor and assume every interface is trying to phish you until proven otherwise, and maybe think twice about whether you really need that third-tier exchange.
Or just accept that in crypto you're your own bank, which means you're also your own security team, your own fraud department, and your own insurance company. It's freedom, but it's also responsibility.
On that cheerful note, thanks for listening to Infinite State. Stay skeptical, and we'll see you in our next episode. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up, comment, and subscribe.